The old alien shivered as he tried to move. His legs were weak and every step sent sharp pain through his joints. The hospital corridor was long and bright, filled with cold white lights and the low hum of machines. Zarek, the elder of his species, had lived for centuries and now in his final days, he faced a cruelty he never expected. The staff, busy and uncaring, watched as he struggled. None of them stepped forward. None offered help. They said he had to crawl. The medicine was at the end of the hall, and the rules demanded that he reach it on his own. Zarek's head drooped and he whispered softly to himself, "I do not want to die here, not like this." His voice was thin and trembling. His species had always valued honor, wisdom, and dignity. To crawl like a child for something that could save his life was humiliation. Yet the rules were rules, and the humans and aliens running the hospital cared little for his dignity. The corridor stretched on endlessly. He dragged one leg after another, each movement slow and painful. His breathing came in shallow gasps and his body shook. Other aliens in the corridor watched silently, their eyes filled with sorrow, but none dared to challenge the authority of the staff. A human janitor named Eli was pushing a mop down the hallway. He had been cleaning the station for years, unnoticed and ignored by most. He was small, quiet, and moved with the kind of careful attention that only those used to being overlooked could master. Today, though, something made him stop. His eyes fell on Zarek, struggling and trembling. The old alien looked like he might collapse at any moment, yet he was still trying, dragging himself painfully across the floor. The sight made Eli's chest tighten. He had seen hardship before, but he had never seen anything like this. He could feel the unfairness of it deep in his bones. Eli wiped his hands on his uniform and took a slow step forward. He stayed at a distance, unsure if he should intervene. The staff had rules and breaking them could get him fired. But something inside him whispered that rules were nothing when a life was at stake. He knelt down slightly to see Zarek's face better. The elder's eyes were tired but still bright, filled with fear and hope at the same time. Eli's heart ached. He remembered his own father, a kind man who had always helped anyone in need. His father had taught him that the right thing was often the hardest thing. Eli took a deep breath, his resolve growing. Zarek dragged himself another few steps. His hands were scraped from the rough floor and blood ran faintly along his palms. He paused and leaned against the wall for support. He looked up, his eyes meeting Eli's. In that moment there was understanding. Eli did not speak. He simply nodded as if to say, "I see you. I understand. You are not alone." Zarek's breathing hitched. Even the smallest acknowledgement felt like a gift. The corridor seemed colder than before, and the other aliens shifted nervously, sensing something important was about to happen. The staff shouted from a distance, "Keep moving. No exceptions. Crawl to the medicine now." Their voices were sharp, impatient. Zarek groaned but forced himself forward. Every movement was agony, but he could not stop. Eli watched, anger and determination rising inside him. No one should have to crawl for survival while others watched without helping. He tightened his hands into fists and stepped closer. He would not break the rules by speaking, not yet, but he would find a way to help. His mind raced, thinking of how he could reach Zarek safely without causing a scene. Zarek paused again, this time near a doorway. He was so weak that his hands trembled uncontrollably. He whispered softly, "I am not ready. I am not ready to leave, not like this." His voice broke and tears formed in the corners of his eyes. The staff barely noticed, shouting instructions at anyone nearby. The other aliens looked away, embarrassed or afraid. But Eli could not look away. He knew that a single human could make a difference even if no one else cared. He had to act. He took another careful step forward, moving closer to Zarek. The old alien's eyes met his again, and for a brief moment, time seemed to slow. The hum of machines, the cold lights, the shouting staff, all of it faded into the background. It was just Eli and Zarek, two beings from different worlds, connected by compassion. The elder's breaths were shallow and his strength was almost gone. If he fell now, he might never rise again. Eli's heart beat faster. He knew he had to decide, right here, right now. As Zarek prepared to pull himself forward one more time, Eli moved slightly closer, ready to step in if needed. He could feel the fear and pain radiating from the alien. For the first time, he realized that courage was not about fighting battles or following rules. It was about standing up when no one else would. Eli's hand hovered near Zarek, a silent promise that he would not let him suffer alone. The old alien looked at him, a faint glimmer of hope in his eyes, unsure what was coming but feeling that perhaps, finally, someone cared. And in that moment Eli understood. He could not stand by and watch. He could not let the elder crawl alone. Something inside him shifted, a determination as steady and strong as steel. He would do whatever it took to help Zarek. No rules, no fears, no consequences could stop him. The old alien would not face this alone. Not today. Not ever. Eli watched Zarek struggle across the corridor. The old alien's body shook with every movement. The pain was clear on his face, and Eli felt it in his chest as if it were his own. The staff continued to shout, their voices sharp and unyielding, but Eli noticed something else. Some of the other aliens had stopped moving. They stood in silence, their eyes fixed on Zarek, too afraid to help, too proud to intervene. Fear and helplessness filled the hall. Eli had never felt so small and so powerful at the same time. Small because he was just a janitor, someone no one noticed, someone who could be ignored. Powerful because he had a choice that no one else was willing to make. He moved a little closer, pretending to sweep near Zarek without drawing attention. His mop scraped softly against the floor, a quiet rhythm under the shouts and beeps of machines. He could see the bruises on Zarek's hands from dragging himself, the scrape marks on his knees. He could see the exhaustion in the alien's eyes. The elder's breathing was uneven, his chest rising and falling too quickly. Each step seemed heavier than the last. Eli's stomach twisted. He wanted to yell at the staff to demand they stop, but he knew that would only make things worse. He had to be careful. He had to act smart. Eli remembered his father. His father had been a simple man but full of kindness. He had always said, "You help when others cannot or will not. That is what makes a person human." Eli had never forgotten those words. Now, as he watched Zarek struggle, he understood them more deeply than ever. It was not about rules or fear of punishment. It was about doing the right thing even when no one else would. The corridor seemed longer with every second. The hum of the machines filled the silence between the shouts of the staff. Eli noticed a small group of aliens gathered at the far end. They were whispering to each other, worried but unsure how to act. None moved to help Zarek. Their hesitation made Eli's resolve stronger. He could not let Zarek fall. Not like this. Not when he could do something. Zarek dragged himself again. His arms shook and he leaned heavily against the wall for support. Eli saw the pain in his eyes, the fear and the pride mixed with shame. The elder species had always been strong, wise, and respected. To crawl in public for medicine was unimaginable. Yet here he was, powerless in a place that should have cared for life. Eli felt anger rise inside him, but he controlled it. Anger alone would not help. He needed patience and courage. Eli took a deep breath. He looked at the path ahead. There was a shadow where the medicine chamber's door opened. The glow of the vials and machines reflected on the floor, bright and cold. That was where Zarek needed to reach. But with every step, the old alien's energy drained faster. He could not make it alone. Eli's hands itched to act, but he stayed hidden for now, pretending to sweep the floor. He could sense the staff noticing him, frowning at the slow pace of his work, but he ignored them. His eyes never left Zarek. A soft whimper escaped Zarek's lips. Eli heard it and it cut through him. He stepped a little closer under the pretense of cleaning. He noticed that Zarek's fingers had scraped against the wall, leaving faint streaks on the metal. The elder's eyes met his again. This time there was something more, trust. A small, unspoken plea. Zarek knew Eli could help even if no one else would. Eli's heart swelled. He had never felt so responsible, so connected to someone he barely knew. The staff shouted again. Move. Keep going. No exceptions. Their words were harsh and loud. They did not see the pain. They did not care. Eli's hands tightened on his mop. He could feel the fear of the other aliens behind him, their hesitation like a weight in the air. But he also felt something else. He felt hope. A small, fragile hope that one human could change what everyone else had accepted. Zarek tried to drag himself forward, but his knees buckled slightly. He let out a quiet groan. Eli stepped closer, pretending to check the floor near him. "It's okay," he whispered softly, though the staff might hear. His voice was calm and steady. "You are not alone." Zarek's eyes met his, filled with a mixture of surprise and relief. For the first time in this long, humiliating journey, he felt someone cared. Someone might actually help. Eli stayed close, watching carefully. He could not act yet. The staff would stop him if he moved too soon. But he watched, waiting, planning. He could carry Zarek if he had to. He could step in at the perfect moment. His mind raced with possibilities, every scenario carefully considered. The old alien's life depended on him. This was no longer just about cleaning floors. This was about doing what was right even when it scared him. Zarek dragged himself a few more steps. He paused and leaned against the wall, trembling. Eli knelt slightly, pretending to adjust a streak on the floor. He whispered again quietly, "I'm here. I won't let you fall." Zarek's eyes softened, a faint glimmer of hope shining through the pain. The old alien's hands shook, but he seemed to gather a little strength, knowing that someone human, someone small and unnoticed, was willing to stand beside him. Eli stayed there, silently supporting him with his presence. He did not speak to the staff, did not challenge them openly. He was a witness, but a witness ready to act. He knew what he had to do. And deep inside he knew that when the time came he would not hesitate. Not for anything. Zarek looked at him one last time before trying to move forward again. His eyes were tired, but they held something Eli had not expected. Trust and perhaps the first spark of hope he had felt in a long time. Eli's heart beat faster. Soon he would have to act. And when he did, nothing would stop him from carrying Zarek to the medicine he so desperately needed. Eli had been watching Zarek for what felt like hours. The old alien's body shook, and every movement looked like it could be his last. His arms and legs were scraped, and the floor beneath him was streaked with marks from his struggle. Eli's heart ached. He had tried to stay hidden, to observe, to plan. But he realized he could wait no longer. The staff's shouts echoed harshly through the corridor. "Keep moving. Move faster. No exceptions." They did not see the pain. They did not care. Eli took a deep breath. He stepped forward, closer to Zarek, pretending to check a puddle of spilled water on the floor. His hands were steady, but inside, his heart raced. He could feel the weight of the moment. Every eye in the corridor seemed to turn toward him, though most were too afraid to speak. The other aliens watched nervously, unsure if he would help or step back. Some whispered to each other, quiet murmurs of hope. They had never seen a human act like this before. Zarek tried to pull himself forward again, but his arms gave way. He groaned softly and leaned heavily against the wall. His breathing was shallow, his chest rising and falling unevenly. Eli knelt slightly, lowering his height so that he was closer to Zarek's level. He whispered gently, "It's okay. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Zarek looked up at him, eyes wide with surprise and something Eli could not name at first. Gratitude? Relief? Fear mixed with hope? Perhaps all of it. The staff shouted again, louder this time. "Step aside. He must crawl. No one is helping him." Eli ignored them. He had made his decision. This was not about rules or fear. This was about doing the right thing. He extended his arms slowly toward Zarek, who hesitated for a moment. His pride, his species' honor, seemed to hold him back. But the pain and exhaustion were stronger than pride. Slowly, carefully he allowed Eli to support him. Eli's hands were steady as he lifted Zarek slightly off the ground. The elder's body was frail, but his weight was heavier than Eli expected. He gritted his teeth and adjusted his hold, balancing Zarek carefully. The corridor seemed to hold its breath. The staff stared in disbelief. Some of the other aliens gasped softly. No one had expected a human janitor to intervene. Eli felt a surge of strength. He would carry Zarek to the medicine no matter what. Zarek's arms rested on Eli's shoulders and for the first time he felt safe. His body, so weak and trembling, could finally relax a little. He had feared humiliation, failure, and death, but now a human was holding him, treating him with care and dignity. Eli moved slowly, carefully down the corridor. Each step required balance and concentration. The staff shouted, but their words seemed distant. Eli focused only on Zarek and the medicine at the end of the hall. The other aliens watched, whispering among themselves. "A human, he actually dares?" one said softly. Another shook their head. Why does he care?" Eli ignored them too. He had not come here for recognition. He had come to save a life. He felt a strange mix of pride and humility. Pride that he was able to help, and humility in realizing that a single act of courage could mean so much. Zarek's breathing slowed slightly as he trusted Eli's strength. His eyes met Eli's and he whispered, "Thank you, human." Eli smiled faintly. "No need to thank me. Just hold on. We'll get there." He adjusted his grip again and continued forward. Each step was careful, measured. He knew that if he stumbled it could hurt Zarek. But he would not falter. The human spirit, Eli realized, was about courage and care, not size or strength. As they approached the medicine chamber, the glow of the machines reflected off the floor and walls. The room seemed almost alive, filled with bright, cold light and the hum of energy. Eli's heart quickened. The end was near, but so was the most important part, making sure Zarek received the medicine safely. The staff moved slightly aside, unsure how to respond. Some seemed angry, others shocked. But no one stopped him. Eli had taken control by the power of his compassion and determination. Zarek's frail body rested more comfortably against Eli. His hands, once scraped and weak, now held onto Eli's shoulders with trust. He had expected indifference, perhaps even cruelty, but instead he found strength and kindness in a small human janitor. The corridor, once cold and oppressive, seemed a little warmer. The other aliens watched in silence, their eyes filled with awe and confusion. They had seen weakness, struggle, and despair, and now they saw courage and hope. Eli took another step, moving carefully, steadying himself with his core strength. He could feel the weight of responsibility, but he also felt the satisfaction of doing the right thing. Zarek whispered again, "You carry more than my body, you carry my hope." Eli's chest tightened. He smiled softly. "Then we'll get you your medicine. Together." Step by step they moved closer. Each movement was careful, deliberate. Each breath from Zarek was lighter than before, filled with trust. The staff watched helplessly. The other aliens whispered among themselves. Eli's quiet heroism spoke louder than any shout, louder than any rule. A single human could make a difference. A single act of care could change everything. And in that moment, Eli understood the power of compassion, the strength of humanity, and the hope that could rise even in the darkest places. They were almost there. The glow of the medicine chamber grew brighter, almost welcoming. Eli adjusted his hold, and Zarek let out a small sigh of relief. It was close now. The lift of hope, fragile and strong at the same time, had carried them nearly to the end. And Eli knew, deep in his heart, that this was only the beginning. Eli stepped carefully into the medicine chamber, carrying Zarek in his arms. The room glowed with a bright, almost harsh light, reflecting off the smooth, metallic walls. Rows of vials and machines hummed softly, holding the cure that Zarek so desperately needed. The staff had followed them, shouting and gesturing, but Eli ignored them. All that mattered now was saving the old alien's life. Zarek's body trembled slightly against him, and Eli could feel the frailty in every bone and muscle. He adjusted his hold, making sure the elder was secure and comfortable. Zarek looked around, eyes wide with awe at the machines and glowing vials. I have never seen such things," he whispered, his voice weak. Eli smiled faintly. "It's strange, isn't it? But don't worry. You're safe now. We're here." The old alien closed his eyes briefly, leaning slightly against Eli. The trust in that small gesture filled Eli with a sense of purpose stronger than any fear of punishment. He had made a promise and he would keep it. The staff finally caught up, standing near the entrance of the chamber. Their expressions were a mixture of disbelief, frustration, and anger. "What are you doing?" one of them demanded. "You cannot. This is against regulations." Eli did not answer. He simply focused on the medicine. He could hear Zarek's shallow breaths and knew there was no time for arguments. Rules were meaningless when a life was at stake. With careful hands he guided Zarek toward the nearest dispenser, a glowing device that contained the life-saving cure. Zarek looked up at him again. You do not fear them?" he asked softly. Eli shook his head. "Not when it is wrong to leave someone to suffer. Sometimes doing the right thing means facing fear. I won't let them stop me." Zarek's eyes glimmered with something like tears, though he was too weak to fully express it. "Human, you carry more than my body. You carry my dignity, my hope." "Thank you," he whispered. Eli nodded, feeling the weight of those words more than the weight of the elder in his arms. He carefully reached the dispenser and activated the controls. The cure, a glowing blue liquid, flowed into a small container. Eli adjusted Zarek, holding him steady as the medicine was prepared. "Almost there," he said gently. Zarek gave a faint nod. His pride, so strong throughout his life, had been broken by circumstance, but Eli's kindness had restored a measure of it. The medicine chamber seemed warmer now, though the lights were still bright and cold. The atmosphere was charged, not with electricity, but with the quiet power of hope and courage. The staff continued to shout, but their voices no longer mattered. Eli administered the cure with careful hands, making sure Zarek received every drop. The old alien's body trembled as the medicine entered his system. Slowly, steadily, color returned to his skin, and the trembling in his body began to subside. Zarek's eyes brightened, and for the first time in hours, he let out a deep, almost relieved breath. He looked at Eli, voice still weak but filled with gratitude. I feel stronger because of you." Eli smiled, holding him steady. "You've got more strength than you know. The medicine will help, but it's your spirit that carried you this far. The other aliens in the chamber were watching silently, some with wide eyes, others whispering to each other. They had never seen such compassion in action. One of them finally spoke, almost in awe. That human, he risked everything to save him. Eli did not reply. He only adjusted Zarek's position and let the medicine work. The quiet dignity of his actions spoke louder than any words. The old alien's survival, his life restored by a human, was a message far stronger than any argument about rules or authority. The staff finally stepped back, realizing that Eli had accomplished what they had refused to do. Some scowled, but the energy in the chamber had shifted. The old alien's recovery could not be ignored. His gratitude toward Eli was clear, and even the most stubborn staff members could not deny the courage of the human janitor who had carried him like a father. Zarek's hands, once trembling and scraped, now rested gently on Eli's shoulders. His body had grown stronger with the cure, but it was the bond formed through care and courage that gave him the greatest strength. Zarek's voice was still soft, but it carried a new warmth. You have done more than I ever imagined, more than any human or alien would be expected to do. You carry honor. Eli shook his head gently. I did what I could. Anyone would do the same if they could. It's not about recognition. It's about helping when help is needed. Zarek smiled faintly, a mixture of relief and pride shining through his eyes. Perhaps, humans are wiser than we knew, he whispered. The chamber was quiet now, filled with a calm that had replaced fear and tension. The other aliens looked at Eli differently, a mixture of respect and astonishment in their eyes. They had witnessed an act of courage, compassion, and moral strength that challenged everything they believed about humans. Zarek's recovery was almost complete, but the lesson was already clear. One human, small and overlooked, had made a difference that no rules or authority could undo. And Eli, humble as ever, simply held Zarek, letting the medicine and his care do their work together. The corridor outside the medicine chamber was quieter now. The staff had returned to their work, though some still whispered about what had happened. The other aliens watched from the shadows, their eyes wide, their expressions a mixture of awe, curiosity, and disbelief. Zarek walked slowly, supported by Eli's steady arms. Though the medicine had restored strength to his body, it was the human's care that had restored his dignity. Step by step, he followed, and the whispers of admiration spread quietly along the hall. Zarek looked up at Eli, his face filled with gratitude. I have seen many humans, he said softly, but I have never met one like you. You carried me as if I were your own father. Eli shook his head gently. I didn't do it for praise, he said simply. I did it because it was right. No one should suffer alone when help is possible. Zarek's eyes shone with emotion. The bond between them, formed through struggle and care, had grown stronger than words could describe. The other aliens began to approach, slowly at first, hesitant. One elder stepped forward, her eyes filled with quiet respect. You saved him, she said almost reverently. Your courage is rare, human. We have lived long and we have seen many acts, but yours is extraordinary. Eli smiled faintly. It was not just me, he replied. It was about seeing someone in need and choosing to help. Anyone could do it if they tried. Anyone can make a difference. The aliens nodded, murmuring softly to each other. The seed of admiration and respect had been planted. Zarek's steps grew steadier as he moved with Eli. The old alien's body had regained strength, but it was more than physical recovery. His spirit had been lifted by the human's actions, and for the first time in what felt like a long age, he felt hope. He had expected indifference, perhaps even cruelty in the station's halls. Instead, he found care, courage, and the quiet strength of humanity. He looked at Eli and said, You have shown me what it means to be truly alive, to trust, and to feel honor in the smallest acts. Eli only nodded, keeping him steady. The staff, once impatient and angry, now observed silently. They had witnessed something they could not ignore. Rules had been broken, yet the outcome was undeniable. A life had been saved and respect had been earned. Some muttered complaints, but they could not erase what had been done. Eli had carried Zarek, not for himself, but for the elders' survival and dignity. And in doing so, he had changed the way humans and aliens alike would think of one another. Zarek paused for a moment, glancing at the other aliens who had been watching. Look at him, Zarek said softly. He is small, overlooked, yet he has more courage and honor than many of us. Perhaps we have underestimated humans. The other aliens nodded slowly, their expressions thoughtful. The lesson was clear. Strength was not only in size, authority, or power. Strength was in courage, in compassion, and in the choice to act when it mattered most. Eli guided Zarek toward a quiet chamber where he could rest comfortably. The elder sank onto a soft bench, letting out a deep sigh. The weight of fear, pain, and exhaustion began to lift from him. He turned to Eli, his eyes misty. "You have done more than carry me," he said. "You have carried hope, dignity, and the essence of what it means to be alive." Eli shook his head, smiling softly. "I only did what anyone should do. That's what makes us human." Zarek's gaze lingered on him, filled with gratitude and a deep sense of respect. The aliens around them began to speak quietly among themselves. "Perhaps the humans are not as weak as we thought," one whispered. Another nodded. "Perhaps they carry something we cannot measure, something powerful." The murmurs spread, quiet but growing. Eli stood silently, holding himself with calm humility. He had not acted for recognition, but he had changed the perception of everyone who had witnessed him. That was the true reward. Zarek's strength returned steadily, but his respect for Eli grew even faster. "You are more than a human janitor," he said softly. "You are a protector, a guide, and a symbol of hope. In my long life, I have never met anyone like you." Eli smiled faintly. "I only did what was right. That is all anyone can do." Zarek nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. For the first time in what felt like centuries, he felt a deep sense of peace. As they sat together, the station seemed different. The halls, once cold and indifferent, now felt warmer. The whispers of other aliens carried new ideas: courage, kindness, and the human spirit. Eli's quiet heroism had shown them something they had never seen before. It was not weapons, rules, or authority that commanded respect, but compassion, courage, and the willingness to stand for what is right. Zarek reached out a hand and placed it on Eli's shoulder. "You have changed more than my life today," he said softly. "You have changed the way we see the universe and the way we see humanity." Eli smiled faintly, feeling the weight of those words. He had done what he had to do, and now the effects spread quietly like ripples in water. The station, the aliens, and even the humans who had watched would remember this day. A single human had carried more than a body. He had carried hope, dignity, and respect. And as they sat together, the future felt different. The corridors, once filled with fear and indifference, now held whispers of admiration and quiet hope. One small human had made a difference greater than anyone imagined, and the universe had taken notice.